So, a reminder before the lesson begins, make sure you're taking notes and you're listening and watching for the keyword or phrase.
Let's get to it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about lesson 6 in unit 4, our expressions, equations, and inequality circles unit. Our aim for today is how can we write and solve two-step equations relating them to real-world problems. So again, as always, we are going to go over our important vocabulary. So what does it mean to solve? We're going to make sure that we're finding the solution or answer to the problem. So solution or answer to the problem. Okay. An equation is a statement that the values of two mathematical expressions are equal. Okay. So the first thing that you are going to do in order to write a two-step equation. All right, so step 1 in the steps to write a two-step equation from a real-world word problem is to determine the variable. What are you solving for? Or what are you missing? What are you missing and what are you solving for? Then you're going to determine the coefficient. So what's going to match up with your variable? Usually it's something that's changing. So per month, per day, per year, per week. The third step is to determine the constants. So you might have multiple constant values that's going to go along with your equation. And then step 4, you're going to write it out that represents the situation or the problem that's given to you. Now, when you set up your equation, you're going to have to actually solve it. So in order to solve your two-step equation, you want to make sure that you distribute or you combine your like terms. Sometimes you can go straight into combining your like terms. Sometimes you might have to distribute, then combine your like terms. Once you get all of your like terms combined and you simplify, you want to make sure that you're isolating the variable. So you're going to isolate, get it by itself by using inverse operations. So opposite operations. So if you're adding, you're going to subtract. If there's variables and a coefficient that's being multiplied, you're going to divide. And then you're going to make sure you find the value for the answer or find the solution. Okay, so let's try our guided practice. We have our first word problem about Billy. So Billy has $150 to spend at the mall. He buys several pants that cost $26 each. After he purchases, he has $46 left over. Write and solve an equation to find out how many pants Billy has bought or Billy bought. Okay, so we have a couple of things. The first thing I want to establish is what are we looking for? What is my variable? My variable or what I'm looking for is how many pants. So I'm going to use P equals number of pants. I like writing this down so I don't forget it. Again, here we can use any variable. They're not specifically giving us a letter, so we could use anything we want. So we have the P with a pair of pants, and we know that each of the pants are going to cost $26 each. So that is my coefficient. It's going to change. That cost is going to change depending on how many pairs of pants Billy buys. So I'm going to start off with 26P, $26 for every pants he buys. He has $46 left over. So in this case, this equation can actually be written in different ways. If I know I have whatever I spent plus whatever is left over, my $46, that has to equal the total amount that I can spend or Billy can spend, which is going to be $150. I've had students in the past set it up as I start with $150. If I subtract the cost of the pants, so $26 each for every pant that I buy, that's going to be left over with $46. either equation is correct, it's also either equation is going to give you the same answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this one over. I'm going to use my second equation and I'm going to solve that one. I know my variable is what I'm looking for. So that means I'm going to use my inverse operations to solve for P. So what I'm going to do first is the last thing that was done to the variable, not the first thing, which would have been 26. I want to look at 150. If that is being added, there's a positive in front and it's invisible. I have to take the inverse operation, which would be subtraction. And I want to get rid of 150, so I'm going to subtract 150 from both sides of my equal sign. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to balance my equation out. I don't want this to be less than here. It has to be equal. So every time I cross over my equal sign, I'm going to make sure that I'm taking the inverse operation. So this is why I draw the dotted line, so I know every time I'm moving a value over to balance, that means I have to take the inverse operation. So 150 minus 150 is just 0. 46 minus 150 is going to give me negative 104. And we have negative 26p. So technically you do have a 0 here, but you don't technically have to write that down there. You can leave it as negative 26p equals negative 104. We are still isolating our variable p, so that means we have to move our negative 26 over to the right side. If it's connected with multiplication, which is invisible here, that means the inverse operation would be to divide by both sides. So I'm going to divide by whatever my coefficient is, and it's negative 26. So both sides are going to be divided by negative 26, and I'm left with p equals 4. Because a negative divided by a negative will give you a positive. And this makes sense because we can't buy a negative amount of pants. So here our answer would be 4 pants. There's sometimes where I might ask for you to write a sentence and you would say, Billy would buy or bought 4 pants. You can write that. All right, let's try number 2. So this is a word problem about gym membership costs. You want to write your 2-step equation and then you're going to solve it. Try this one on your own, pause the video, and come back and check if you got the right answer. Okay, so here we have a 1-year membership cost $240. So we know that's what it's going to equal. We know there's a fee of $10 and then it's paid monthly. Okay, well, let's take everything in. Let's do a fee of $10 and when you join, the rest is paid monthly. So we want to know how much money they pay per month. Okay, so I'm going to say M equals cost per month. All right, I know that if I have a $10 fee, I'm going to add that to my M, and that's going to equal $240. Every month, I have to pay M amount of dollars, but I don't know what that M is. So I know that if I pay monthly, it's going to be 12 months. There's 12 months in a year because we're referring to a 1-year gym membership. So 12M, 12 is going to be our coefficient. So from this point on, now I can start to solve. I'm going to make sure I isolate my variable to solve for M. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm still isolating my variable. I'm going to take my inverse operation and divide this by 12. And remember, if you're adding by 0, that can disappear. Divide both sides by 12. You're going to get M equals, you're going to get 19.166 repeating. So here we know we're talking about cost, so we can round. So our membership is actually going to be $19.17 per month. So we have our inverse operations. We did come up with our solution, but we're making it make sense in our situation. Money can't be written with a repeating decimal, so we convert it to and round it into our $19.17 per month. Okay, let us try our last one, number 3. So pause the video, try this one on your own, and come back and check your answer, see if you're right. So for number 3, Ellie has $500 in her savings account. If she withdraws $20 per week for gas, you want to make sure you're writing and solving an equation for how many weeks it's going to take her to have a balance of $220. Okay, so W equals the number of weeks, making it super simple for myself, not too complicated so I don't forget what I'm including. I know that Ellie has $500 in her account. Withdrawing money, I'm taking it out. Obviously, Ellie's going to be spending it on gas. So what we have is minus, and it's 20, and looking for that keyword per or every per week, multiplying, is going to leave me with $220. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to isolate my variable and use my inverse operations and solve. So here we're solving for W. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my constant. So we have minus 500, minus 500. This is going to cancel out. I'm going to get negative 280 on my right, and I'm left with negative 20W. So now I'm still isolating my variable. I'm going to continue isolating by using inverse operations. This is connected by multiplication, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 20, the coefficient, by negative 20. These are going to cancel out. I'm going to be left with only W equals 14, because negative 280 divided by negative 20 is going to give you a positive 14. So that means it would take Ellie 14 weeks to get to her to have her balance equal $220. So 14 weeks till Ellie's account is $220. And again, sometimes you can write your sentence or you can just write the 14 weeks. But you do want to make sure you're including your units. Okay, so make sure you identified your phrase and your key word. Make sure you're writing down your questions that you have for me. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.